What's going on, good people? What's going on? My name is Dominique Bond.
And I'm Dexter Pggins, Jr.
And in partnership with WYTV7, Christian Broadcasting Network, this is When Men Open Up, a show where we are redefining manhood through transparency. And last week was a very, very good week. It was a very good show. We spoke on control issues.
Yeah, definitely.
And we talked about how it paralyzes us, how it affects our lives, how it affects other people. We also talked about how we exert that energy onto other people. And after the show, we always have some good conversations, man.
Definitely.
And I really do believe those conversations need to be had, or need to be recorded. But anyways, we began to, during the show, we began to speak very briefly about how we exert that energy not on other people, but on ourselves.
Yeah.
How we control ourselves in a negative way or an unhealthy way, and not even realize we should have a part two of control issues, but more so focusing on how we exert that energy on ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because at the end of the day, most of the time we're very conscious about the energy that we're expelling upon other people, but we give very little attention to what's going on inside of us. And a lot of times the energy that we exert, the negative energy, is actually a reflection of really how we view ourselves.
Right.
And so ultimately, if you can get to the root of what's going on inside of you, I think you'll do a better job of engaging people on a day-to-day basis.
And like you said, that we can somehow understand how to recognize it, how to be more aware, how to be more conscious of it, then that's always the first initial step.
Exactly.
And if we can really move forward with that, then we're heading in the right direction. So this is not to really beat anyone up, but it's really to help us become more aware of the different ways on how we lose control over our minds. So today is how are we going to regain control over our minds, regain control over our minds. And man, there's so many. We were just talking about it earlier before we even tuned in. We was all over the place with this.
Yeah.
Because there's so many ways how we just limit ourselves and really restrict ourselves and paralyze ourselves to where we don't move in the direction that we want to move in. And one of the things I like that you really mentioned is, as far as us, we have to do a lot of planning.
Yes.
We work with a lot of clients.
Yes.
We're doing different events and so forth. It said we want things to be near perfect.
Yes.
Well, we want things to be perfect. even though it's impossible, we still shoot for that perfect.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying?
I do.
And because we want that, we tend to overplan a little bit.
Yes.
So let's go more into the overplanning.
So, as it relates to being a person who has control issues, and like I mentioned last week, I'm working through my process.
We all are.
And I get I don't know if it's the fortune or misfortune to do it live on social media, but a person dealing with control issues, one of the things I recognize is that I have a tendency to over-prepare. And I'm not saying that preparation is wrong. I'm a proponent of always being prepared. But I know that for me, it was rooted in a sense of fear based upon being unprepared or being caught out there unprepared. And so the issue with my mindset at the time, and trust me, I've gotten a lot better with this, I would not give myself room to enjoy being spontaneous. No, I don't do spontaneity because I didn't prepare for spontaneity. But the reality is that I've learned that something always goes wrong when I prepare to the fullest. And so even when something goes wrong, the control issues that I have, are on high alert because I'm not in control. I can't fix this issue that popped up,
Exactly.
And so in order to calm my own nerves and kind of come to a place where I can recognize that, Dexter, you are working yourself up for really no reason. I've had to kind of learn to go with the flow. And it is a process because there are times I'm like, yo, I hate this. Let's, let's put this on paper. Let's stick to the script. But the reality is that, you're not going to enjoy life to its fullest if you are trying to determine how the wind blows and how the waves, how they flow. Sometimes you just have to take things as they come and adjust accordingly.
I really like that. And at the end of the day, we want things just to be awesome. We want things to be great. We want things to be perfect. And there's nothing wrong with that. You want things to go a certain way. Mm-hmm. The thing is, like you stated, there's going to be something that's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
But even in those situations, there's still some things that we don't have control over. And if anybody is viewing the broadcast right now, please share and please invite other people to view in. And please comment and give some feedback as well. For me, it's that fear as well. It's that fear that, you know what, I only have one shot. Yeah. It's that fear that if I don't excel on a high level, then they're not going to come back. Because in business, we know, hopefully a lot of people know, one of the basic things to know is sometimes we spend too much money marketing for new clients or new customers, when really we have to focus on that, but we have to really focus on how are we going to keep the customers that we have to keep coming back. We shouldn't always have to keep spending so much money on getting new clientele, getting new customers. So I allow that pressure to interfere with the planning. What I have to realize is when I'm behaving like this, I am stressed out. Yeah. I'm probably losing sleep. I'm not thinking correctly because I'm stressed out. So really, you really have no choice to calm yourself down and really have this peace within your preparation, so you can think on such a high level, and that creativity won't be limited. And I think I actually do know that when we are stressed on that level, and when we are behaving on that level, our creativity is going to go down. The way we process things is not going to be as effective, and that's going to interfere with our whole process in general.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not doing yourself any favors by overstressing, and ultimately, when you have an attitude or a mindset that's always geared on being, essentially perfect in everything, like I said, you're not allowing yourself to go with the flow. You're very rigid in your approach, and at the end of the day, you're going to end up repelling people because no one can live up to the expectations that you have ultimately built up for yourself.
Exactly.
And so at the root of this, you have to start assessing those things that are going on the inside in order to really find that true impact externally.
Yeah, and I want to make sure we are on the same page because things can be taken out of context. So preparation is very important. Yes. We truly believe in it. And when we do say go with the flow, that doesn't mean that we're not saying not to plan at all. No. But there's some things that we can be too rigid and too, step by step to the point where we kind of limit ourselves in our potential and what we are able to actually do. So there is such thing as over preparing, and when you over prepare, it can cause some behaviors that can really affect us in so many negative ways. I think another thing is I have a friend, and this person, I believe this person should be a professional movie critic or a professional critic when it comes down to new products and so forth, because man, when it comes down to everything, you can rely on this person to spot out something negative. Something negative. I'm like, man, how can your mind really just go there so quickly with so many different things? And there are some people like that. Every situation is always what the worst can happen. Yeah. What's the worst outcome? what may possibly go wrong, and what may happen to you. And this is an easy way for us to paralyze ourselves, because we are constantly allowing those thoughts to circulate our minds over and over and over again. And we're primarily just focusing on what can go wrong. And if we're primarily focused on what can go wrong, then our anxiety peaks. That causes us to stress. That's all we talk. And we end up really convincing ourselves, why should I do this? Yeah. If all these things can go wrong, why should I do this? And I didn't even take time to think about the positive, but I'm just thinking about the negatives. And man, these things look pretty bad. I don't want to experience these things.
I mean, and that's good. As a father, they hit me with what you just said, because I wrestle with, am I being a detriment to my own children? Mm-hmm. I don't want to ruin my son's childhood by placing adult expectations upon them.
Oh, that's good.
Because I'm so mindful of the negative. Yeah. At the end of the day, they have a life, to live of their own. Mm-hmm. They have a privilege and an opportunity to enjoy the growth process just like I did. And so I'm hurting them by robbing them of life lessons that an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old get to experience, because I'm applying my adult rationale on their experience. And as a man, I have to say, they're boys. Mm-hmm. And boys will be boys. Out of you that you always want to hit the panic button with everything. Reel it back, breathe, and then let them scrape their knees, let them tell you about it, and then, help them in their process, but not from the standpoint of trying to judge and trying to circumvent life.
Exactly. And sometimes with some of these situations where we think the ultimate worst, we have to, once again, understand where that is stemming from. Because it may stem from something that you may have control over to actually fix. Yeah. So the question is always, what are you going to do about that? We don't control everything, but there are some things that we do have some level of control, and we have to really ask ourselves, okay, what is it going to take for me to eliminate this, or to increase this, or to enhance this, or whatever the case may be. I think another thing is, we kind of went over this a few episodes ago, is you never know what you may learn in that situation. There's a lot of things that we learned several years ago from a mistake or from failing, and that lesson we was able to apply today. You get what I'm saying? So you just never know what situation, what mistake, what failure you're going to actually learn from, and how that may play a part in the future.
And to go along with that, I think another thing that really hinders us is that traumas from the past have a way of controlling our future. And what I mean is that control issues really, if you think about it, they're your own internal system that you've created in order for you to not experience whatever that trauma felt like before. And so a lot of times it's our traumas that are really motivating our decision-making process. And so just like we talked about how decisions and actions from the past can help us in the future, I want to encourage you to consider what is your internal voice saying when you're confronted with an issue? When you get that urge to control something, ask yourself, okay, what does this stem from? Have I always been like this? And if I haven't, then what, kind of cultivated, what served as the catalyst for me to start acting this way? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and somebody just asked, you kind of went over the question that someone just asked. They asked, how do you, what about the things that you cannot control?
That's good.
And it's what you just stated, is that process. So for those things that you cannot control, how is it really affecting you? Is it fear? Is it whatever emotions? In many cases, it is that fear.
Yeah.
What we have to do is go through that process of really asking ourselves, am I really afraid of this thing that I have no control over due to a lack of confidence? Yeah. Is it just a lack of the unpredictable? Yeah. Is it not knowing? Is it the unknown? are you really just thinking negative about that situation? Because honestly, every minute of the day, there are things that we're exposed to that we have no control over.
Yeah.
The difference is that you just probably, in many cases, you're not conscious of it. When we're on the road, we don't have control over who's driving near us.
There you go.
You get what I'm saying?
You
But
go.
you have to ask yourself, am I going to live this life always
Terrified.
You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because and this is what we're talking about today, is how we're going to regain that control over our minds. Are we going to allow other things, the external things around us, to really control us or paralyze us? And if we just allow that all the time, then there's going to be a lot of things that we're just not going to be able to live up to.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and we talked about this before, but if you really think about it, there are very few things in life that you control. Really, what it boils down to, the only things you can really say definitively that you can control are your actions. So we don't even always control our thoughts. Sometimes it's just a thought will pop up in your mind, but how you respond is really about the only thing that you control. And so if you live a life where the external factors are always controlling you, then, life is bound to be very difficult and it's going to be very frustrating. And then ultimately, it's going to limit you from experiencing everything that God has for you. And so, once again, with this topic of control issues and how do I regain control, you have to get back to the place where you exert an understanding that, hey, but I'm going to do my best in each situation. Like I said, we're not anti-preparedness. Please don't hear that. If you ever see us at an event, we'll probably have notes and we'll have a PowerPoint. Right. But I'm not governed by that. I'm not pigeonholed to that either, where I can't take a free step out there and say, okay, I'm going to explore a different direction. And so hopefully, you'll be encouraged to really start living life to its fullest.
Exactly. I think another thing that I had to read up on and I've been around a lot is just the way we actually complain.
Yeah.
And what I realize is when we do complain, let's just say after a situation, we're frustrated over the outcome.
Yeah.
And after that, we're going to start complaining because of the results of the outcome of how things worked out, because we had expectations, and because we didn't live up to those expectations, it caused that frustration. So, and we start complaining. Now, this is the thing. When we talk to someone else, if I come to Dexter and I say, hey, man, let me tell you what happened at work today, what I'm doing is I'm reliving the experience again. Now, we're just not saying that it's not okay to talk about it, but there's a difference. That's what I'm saying. It's just the way we are complaining, or if we are complaining. So what we're doing is we're reliving the experience. So when we're reliving the experience, understand what happened beforehand. That experience caused you to be frustrated.
Yeah.
So when we're reliving the experience, we're going to be frustrated again. But this is the thing, man. When we tend to talk about it, sometimes we'll think about something else that happened as well. So we'll create a new frustration.
Yeah.
So we'll actually cause ourselves to be even more frustrated every time we're talking to more and more people, and complaining to more and more people about, man, let me just tell you what happened. Let me tell you what this girl told me. Let me tell you what this guy, how I had the audacity just to say to me, or whatever the case may be. And we are bringing ourselves back to that again.
Yeah, I mean, and that's good. I'm not dealing with that issue anymore. I'm free. I'm delivered, y'all. But one of the things, I'll tell you on the flip side of that, one thing is that I've learned to recognize my position in the story. And so sometimes you can take on the perspective of the victim, but if you really replay it, and if you're honest with yourself, you can see how you've actually served as a facilitator for some of the drama.
Right.
And we're not always honest in that vein. And so, hey, listen, y'all, we trying to get people free. And so in getting free, you have to be more self-aware of what's really going on in the situations.
Most definitely. And once again, we just want to clarify because we don't want anybody to be on the wrong page. We're not saying that it's wrong to talk to anyone.
No.
Matter of fact, we really encourage everyone to be vulnerable with people that you actually trust and to talk things out, because when you do talk things out, it can create more understanding, more clarity.
Yeah.
But there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a big difference when you're actually just complaining and just going on, like you said, saying, just playing the victim role, or just focusing on just the negative and not just focusing on and not additionally focusing on, okay, what are some things that I can correct with this situation? What are some things that I can control? Is this a situation that I need to avoid? Need to go back to this, that whole process. And there's just we have to really monitor. This is the whole thing about this topic. The biggest thing is really just to be conscious of your mindset.
Yeah.
And if you're not conscious of your mindset, you're just gonna continue on with the pattern. And if you realize that every time I'm complaining about this situation and it's bringing me up to this level of anger, to this level of frustration, all I'm saying is it's worth really just diving in and just ask yourself, is this really healthy for me?
Yeah.
That's it. We're not really telling anybody to do anything per se, but you have to really ask yourself, is this a healthy behavior for myself?
And I'm glad you went there, because one of the things we definitely want to make sure that we address before we conclude with this episode is kind of identifying ways you can really regain control of your mind. And so, Dominique, you mentioned assessing. One of the things I know that I talk about quite often with clients is examining your worldviews. Not only your belief system, but how you handle situations. Yeah. A lot of times we handle situations the same way maybe our parents did. If you really think about it, you probably sound like your parents when you argue. You kind of have the same vantage point, or, it might not be a parent, it might be somebody you looked up to. But the reality is that if they maybe picked up a worldview that wasn't necessarily healthy, then there's a good likelihood that your outlook is not going to be healthy either.
Right.
The way you handle conflict is not going to be healthy. And so when we're talking about regaining control of your mind, the second thing, in addition to what Dominique said about assessing, to piggyback on that, I would just say, take a thorough look at your worldview and your belief system. Ask yourself, how are they working for you? Because here's the thing, nothing is pigeonholing you to maintaining that belief if it doesn't work for you. Nothing is telling you that, hey, I got to keep this worldview because great granddad felt this way. No, the reality is that what's working for you. Listen to God and govern yourself by the Spirit, and allow the Spirit to show you how to appropriate situations in life. that which you've been allowing to deposit in yourself.
Most definitely. And I want to hit on one more thing before the time is out. I think judgment is that something that we got to be careful with as well. And we may just look at it as, well, that's you all are talking about how the energy is exerting on yourself, but that is, you can, based upon how you judge other people, you can lose out on that. So I know one of the things with me is, for a mentor, I had expectations.
Mind, we experience a lot of battle, a lot of warfare, and so you are responsible with how you